Now let's see the toconomic point definition, and based on that, what is called the position and the variation of position. So first, toconomic point is going to be an specific point of the presenting part of the fetus, that is an arbitrary point that we use to define the position of the fetus relative to the mother. So that is the toconomic point. Position is going to be what is the relationship of the toconomic point with the right and left side of the mother, and variety position is what is the relationship of the toconomic point with the anterior, posterior, right or left of the mother. So in summary, the toconomic point is an arbitrary point of the presenting part that we are going to use to define how is that point relative to the mother: anterior, posterior, right, left, that is position and variety. So let's see, first let's define the toconomic point in the different presentation we can have. So in the previous video we saw we can have a longitudinal orientation, or we can have a transverse orientation. In the longitudinal orientation we can have a cephalic presentation, or we can have a breech presentation. In the transverse orientation we have the shoulder presentation. And we can also have other presentation in the longitudinal orientation, which is the acromion presentation, or the shoulder. We will say the acromion in a longitudinal presentation or longitudinal orientation. So the cephalic presentation we saw in the previous video, which we called attitudes, is where we have maximal flexion of the head. This is a vertex presentation. We have the maximal extension of the head. This is a face presentation. We have the partial extension of the neck. This is the presentation of the brown, or the different presentation. And we have partial flexion, which is the military or bregma or Occiput presentation. presentation. So the toconomic point in a maximal flexion presentation. So this is the cephalic presentation, maximally flex neck. The toconomic point here is going to be the occiput. So here, let's draw a table. Here we will write the presentation, and here the toconomic point. So in a cephalic presentation with maximally flexed neck, this is a vertex presentation or a occiput presentation. Here the toconomic point is the occiput. If we have maximal extension, that is called a face presentation, and here the toconomic point is the mentum. If we have a partial extension, that is the Brown presentation, or in Spanish, presentación de frente. And here the toconomic point is the nasal bone. If we have the bridge presentation, here the toconomic point, bridge presentation, the toconomic point is the sacrum of the baby. And if we have shoulder presentation, the toconomic point is the acromion. So this is the toconomic point of the presentation or the presented part. So this is the point, toconomic point. This is the point, for example, in vertex presentation. This is the point. The occiput is going to be the point with which we are going to define how is this point relative to the mother, anterior, posterior, right, left. So that is toconomic point. Here we do a table of each toconomic point of the cephalic presentation and also this one. Remember this presentation of the cephalic presentation, we call them attitude, because in reality attitude, this is how does the head relate to all the parts of the body. And remember that if we have fetal demise, the attitude is lost. And so now let's correlate the toconomic point with position and variation of position. So I will erase this. So we can have let's draw the pelvis of the mother. So so if in this orientation is the mother, this is the pelvis, this is anterior, this is posterior, and we are going to put the pelvis in this way. So this is the pelvis, anterior here, posterior here, we will put the pelvis in this way. So anterior will be here, posterior will be here. So the pelvis, how to draw this? The sacrum is going to be here. I don't know how to draw this. The sacrum is going to be here. The wings are going to be here. Pubic symphysis is going to be here. More or less, something like this, or this is the idea. So this is posterior of the pelvis, this is anterior of the pelvis. So here, posterior, anterior, and this is right, this is left. So this is right and this is left. We are going to schematize this with a Cartesian plane. So we have this is anterior, this is posterior, this is left, this is right. So how what are the variety of position that the toconomic point can have? This is this is the toconomic point. Let's say here where the hair of the unicorn is beginning. This is the toconomic point. So relative to the pelvis, let's say all this is the pelvis. This toconomic point relative to the pelvis can be anterior to this is relative to here, so can be pointing here, can be pointing anterior, can be pointing posterior. Look, here's pointing posterior. Can be on the left or can be on the right, and we can have combination. We can have pointing posterior, but towards left. We can have pointing posterior, but towards right. So here we have position left, right, and we have variety of position, which is anterior, posterior, left, right. So what are only different positions the toconomic point can have in relation to the pelvis? This is, we can have this is anterior, posterior, left, right. We can have what is called occiput anterior, because remember that the most common presentation is the vertex or occiput presentation. So we are considering that the toconomic point is the occiput. So this is called occiput anterior, occiput posterior, occiput left, occiput right, and we have some other this is left occiput posterior, left occiput. This is left occiput anterior. This is right occiput posterior, and this is right occiput anterior. So let's review this. Again, here is the pelvis, this is anterior, this is posterior, the pelvis is this way. So if this is the longitudinal axis of the mother, this is the longitudinal axis of the fetus, we are seeing cephalic presentation, so the head is down, and we have an occiput presentation or a maximally flexed attitude. So this is a vertex presentation, pelvis is like this, so also the fetus, I'm going to put the fetus like this. So remember, here this is anterior, this is posterior, and the baby is in this longitudinal axis to have the same, to have a parallel orientation with the longitudinal axis of the mother. What are the varieties of position that the toconomic point, which is the occiput, can have in relation with the mother pelvis? This can be occiput anterior, so head towards anterior, occiput anterior, and neutral position, no right nor left. So occiput anterior, occiput posterior. So here toconomic point is pointing to the posterior part of the mother. We can have toconomic point pointing towards left in a neutral position, midway anterior, midway posterior. We can have toconomic point pointing towards the right, and we can have intermediate. So this is called occiput anterior, pointing anterior, occiput posterior, pointing posterior, left occiput, right occiput, and the intermediate are here in occiput posterior, but shifted leftwards somehow. This is left occiput posterior. This is here, this is occiput anterior, and if it shift towards left, this is anterior occiput left, or left occiput anterior. So occiput posterior, left occiput posterior, left occiput anterior, occiput anterior. Now let's go towards the right side. Posterior occiput, or occiput posterior, pointing downwards, then shifted a little bit to the right. This is right occiput posterior, then pointing towards the right, then this. So this is occiput anterior and shifted towards right a little bit. This is right occiput anterior. So what are the how many variety of position does the toconomic point can have in relation to the maternal pelvis? There are 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can have 8. So we can have occiput posterior, left occiput posterior, left occiput, this is also called left transverse, anterior occiput, right anterior, right occiput anterior, right occiput or right transverse occiput, right occiput posterior, and again occiput posterior. So these are the varieties we can have of the toconomic point. Here, this is the example with the toconomic point being the occiput, but we can have the same variety of position with, for example, the the mentum in a face presentation. So it's the same in a face presentation. This is maximally extended, is the same. Here the toconomic point is the mentum. So this is more difficult to do it. This is mentum posterior, left mentum posterior, left mentum, left mentum anterior. Oh, this is difficult to say. Left anterior, sorry, mentum anterior, right mentum anterior, right mentum, right mentum posterior. So it's the same. It's the same. Just what changes is the toconomic point, but we have the same variations. So specifically with the for example with the shoulder, we can have maybe more variations, but it doesn't matter. Each variation of the variety of position of the shoulder, we call it the same way. Or we can have like different attitudes or presentation. We can have different presentations of the shoulder, but we will call that anyway just shoulder presentation. We are not going to review specifically which presentation of shoulder presentation. We just call shoulder presentation. So the toconomic point is an arbitrary specific point of the presenting part of the fetus that is going to define the position of the fetus or of that point relative to the mother. The position is the relation right to left of the mother with that point, and variative position is the relationship of the toconomic point to the right, left, anterior, posterior of the mother. So the toconomic point in a vertex occiput presentation is the occiput. The toconomic point in a face presentation is the mentum. Toconomic point of the brow presentation is the nasal bone. Toconomic point of breech presentation is the sacrum. Toconomic point of shoulder presentation is the acromion. How many variations we can have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 variations, which with occiput being the toconomic point is occiput posterior, occiput, left occiput posterior, left occiput or left occiput transverse, left occiput anterior, left occiput anterior, right occiput anterior, right occiput or right occiput transverse, right occiput posterior, and occiput posterior again.